Good morning, everybody. I hope you are doing well. We are going to learn some Tanya now. Chasidic philosophy. We're in the book of Tanya, Likutei Amarim. It's also called Likutei Amarim. Good morning, Scotty, which means a gathering of sayings. This is the book written by the Alter Rabbi, the first Rabbi of Chabad, or his students actually compiled all of these different essays and so on that he had written over time. And this forms the basis of Chabad Chasidic philosophy. We're going to start with a l'chaim. L'chaim, everybody. I wish you a l'chaim. I wish you a happy and a healthy day to life, we say. This, of course, is my coffee. That will help me have a successful class, I hope, with all of you. And now we're going to say a health l'chaim. Health l'chaim. Highly recommended. We give a pump. See the gel. Slather it on. Like so. Gloves of resistance have been donned. Now we are ready to rock and roll. Here we go. So, chapter 35. We're in the middle of 35. We're learning Tanya. Good morning, Tammy. And this is a very interesting chapter. If you'll recall, we have been talking about the greatness of studying Torah and how that causes a mind meld, a unification of our mind with the consciousness, as it were, of Almighty God. Well, there is something that actually supersedes that in some ways, and that is when we actually do mitzvahs. When we actually do mitzvahs using our hands, or in the case of my cousin Tammy, she used her feet to do a mitzvah, right? She went on the walk to help raise money for breast cancer and so on. This is a mitzvah. This is a positive deed. And that brings the light of godliness into the world, reveals her feet. God, see, I deal with the soul. Tammy dealt with the soul of her feet. The soul of her feet brought godliness into the world in a revealed way. It was a revealed way, because when you see people getting up and stretching themselves and working themselves and so on, breaking a sweat, all in the service of others, this causes the godly light in the world to shine more than it had previously been lit. And only her action of walking, in the case of my cousin Tammy, or me, when I'm going to be putting on my tefillin shortly after this class, causes the physical body to be involved in the service of God and to reveal what's called the Shechina. The Shechina is the Hebrew word. Shechina means the divine presence. There's many different ways we relate to God. So God has different names, not because there's different parts of God. There's only one God, but there's different ways that we as human beings relate to God. So the way we relate to God as our neighbor, as being in our midst, is called the Shechina, the divine presence. The Hebrew word, by the way, that it's based on, the root of it, the shoresh, is shachen, which means neighbor, our neighborly God. God is there as our neighbor. Buenos dias, Hector. ¿Cómo estás? Gracias a Dios. Baruch Hashem. Thank you, God. Feeling well. Okay, so let's go. So now he's going to say how it works, that our mitzvah observance is able to reveal godliness in our world. So he says that even though that the essence of the animal soul, remember we were talking about yesterday how we are endowed with a godly soul called nefesh elokis. Nefesh is one word for soul. Elokis means godly. And nefesh habahamis, and an animal soul. The animal soul comes from klipas noga. Klipas noga, klipa, if you'll recall, is a shell, a covering of God, but noga means there's a light within it. So there's godliness within it. The kernel of that thing is godly soul, and our job is to reveal it, to uncover it, to take that shell off that otherwise conceals godliness. So we have two souls, and nefesh elokis, well, that's pure godliness. That's just, there's nothing concealing the godliness whatsoever. And there is also, good morning, Sabrina. There is also, I'm glad you're not horsing around and instead you're with us today. Sabrina has horses. Anyway, the animal soul, that godliness is concealed within it. And it's our job to kind of try and yoke that animal, like you have a big animal. Let's say you have an ox. And if you don't yoke it, it's just going to do damage. It's going to run wherever it wants. It could gore, it could crush, it could cause damage, break things and so on, walks through things instead of around things. We all know what an animal. But on the other hand, if you can harness it, if you can harness that animal and put it in the right direction, so ask a farmer the difference between trying to push something to go through the ground. If he needs to schlep a wagon, move a wagon from point A or point B, or to prepare his soil for planting, what's easier, to do it with a animal harnessed or to do it all by itself? Hey, Karen, good morning. Or to do it by him push it himself? The answer is when the animal is harnessed, it makes the going much easier. An animal has a certain power that a human doesn't have, a physical power. So it's the same thing with our animal soul and our godly soul. Our animal soul doesn't want to necessarily do mitzvahs. But if we harness it, if we can force it and direct it in the right path, if we can train it, domesticate it, and so on, and train it in the right way, so then the going becomes much easier. The plowing becomes much more efficient, and so on, when you have your animal soul harnessed and working with the godly soul. The godly soul is like the driver, and the animal soul is the engine that's pulling it. So, let's start. And even though that the essence of his animal soul that's in his heart, it stays in his heart. You know how sometimes you are led by your emotions instead of controlling your emotions control you. So the animal is a very emotional thing. And here he's talking about which emotions? The bad emotions. For example, the emotion of anger, getting angry at things very easily. That's one I got to work on a lot. Or other things, being silly, being goofy, being scared, being, not concerned. I don't mean concerned in a mature way, but just being scared and panicky and so on. These are all emotions that derive from the animal soul. They still have not yet become included by the godly light. Remember, we were talking about yesterday that when we do a mitzvah, we become included. The Hebrew word is nichlal. We become included within the godly light. We call malkum nevertheless. Since they are being bent to the side of holiness, they are being harnessed and directed into the way of holiness. For example, you're in shul, you're sitting in shul, or maybe you're watching something virtually these days. But it's forced to answer Amen, right? When you're in the synagogue, sometimes a blessing is said, and you're supposed to say Amen. Well, what says Amen? Your physical body. That includes your animal soul. So your animal soul is being forced to answer Amen. Amen means the blessing that was just said is true, right? Umaskimin, umasratzin lasiyas mitzvah, and it's also agreeing and acceding this animal soul to do mitzvahs. Right? You need your physical body to cooperate if you want to do mitzvahs. For example, you want to do the walk to raise money for breast cancer awareness, but that's only in your head. You need your physical body, you need your feet to agree to that. So it's forced. In a way, it's forced. Your mind rules over your body. So how do you do that? Your godly soul, which resides primarily in your mind, tells your animal soul, look, we've got to help out others. We've got to, for your own good, you've got to help out others. It reasons with it, so to speak, in language and words that it can understand, that the animal soul itself can understand. So it says it behooves you to get up and get going and training and doing, and then be able to do the walk. So eventually, he convinces the animal soul, okay, if it's for my benefit, I'll do it. And up he gets, and up he starts training, and he does it. So, there could be times where the animal soul is doing it because it's being forced to do it. It's not debating the issue. It's not fighting the issue, per se. It's kind of like in a state of being asleep. It's sleepwalking. It's being forced and trained and so on. So have you affected a change in the actual animal soul? The Alter Rebbe's point here is no, you haven't. You have not yet turned the animal soul. You've changed its behavior perhaps, but have you changed its essence, its own thinking, its own motivation? And the answer is not yet. But since you have changed its behavioral pattern to change at that moment, that is enough to cause the divine presence to rest upon it. Remember, that was what we were starting and talking about, the idea of the divine presence resting upon this person. We all want to be or we should want to be a vessel for godliness, a vehicle through which God reveals himself. That's the goal here. We're trying to be godly people, and so on. So this is a way to do it, even though your animal soul, since it's cooperating now, even though it's not maybe on board fully, but at this moment, it's harnessed and going the right direction. So therefore, at that moment, you are indeed revealing the fact that the divine presence is being revealed through you. That means that the power of the life-giving soul, that's the animal soul's life-giving soul, is enclosed within this action mitzvah, this deed. It's literally included at that moment within the light of God, in a complete unification. And through this unification of the animal life-giving soul and the godly Shechina, the divine presence, he draws down this ha'ara, this shining ray of godliness, and it causes his life-giving soul, shebachol haguf, that's found throughout his body, v'gam al haguf hagashmi. And this godliness also reveals itself on its physical body. When you are physically doing a mitzvah, the divine spirituality, the godliness, the divine presence is revealed through you at that moment. Bebechinis makif milmaila, it's like surrounding you from above. Meirosha v'ad raglei, from your head until your feet, you are surrounded with a godly light when you are busy doing a mitzvah. When you're studying Torah, on the other hand, where is the godliness revealed? It's in your mind. It's in your mind. And others from the outside might not necessarily be able to see that you are at that moment attached to Hashem. But when you are doing the will of Hashem through fulfilling a mitzvah openly, physically, so that everyone can see, wow, people are saying, oh, he is doing a commandment. He's doing a commandment. God is speaking through that person, so to speak, or God's will is being performed through that person's action. And that's what it's written. This is the explanation, the way that God is kind of surrounding, overarching that person, the divine presence in the time when he's doing a mitzvah. The Shechinta Sharia al Reshe, that the Shechina, the divine presence, is resting on his head. Al Daika. On is the operative word here. The idea that God is on top of him. V'chein, he's his commander-in-chief. V'chein akol be'asar shchita sharia. Like it says also that wherever there is an assembly of 10 Jews, the Shechina, the divine presence, rests upon it. Where there's 10 people together serving God, the Shechina, the divine presence, is found upon it. V'hine kol bechinas hamshachas ara Shechina. This means that all the levels of drawing down this light of the Shechina. Imagine the world. We're talking now about the spiritual world. That just like there's a physical world, it has a spiritual counterpart. And imagine, I always like to use the mashal, the example, the metaphor of an inverted cone. So the higher up you go, the more the divinity, the godly light is revealed, and then it gets contracted, more and more and more and more contracted, till in this world, the godliness is concealed unless you and I reveal it through our actions, through our words, and through our thoughts. That's how we reveal it, right? So there are certain times when we can reveal it more. For example, when we're sitting in a group and we're davening, we're praying together, and so on. Now we have trouble sitting in a group, right? So when we study together virtually, so we're virtually revealing the godliness in the world. So, when we do this, it says, all this drawing down of the light from the supernal source, right? It's called the Or Ein Sof, the never-ending light, this divine light that we draw down through this spiritual, it's called the chain of worlds. And it has, it contracts, the light contracts more and more, as I said before, right? So the more we draw it down, the more light we pull into this line coming down to us, so to speak. Remember, this is all metaphorically. So we reveal it. So you might have a question. So it says in the Talmud that wherever you have a group of 10, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rests upon them. So what does that mean? That there's many gods? Because if God is revealed here in our group of 10, and God is revealed in San Diego in their group of 10, and in Jerusalem in their group of 10, and in Jerusalem you have many groups of 10 going, and in Los Angeles you have, and in New York you have, does that mean, is that a plurality in God that we're describing? And the answer is chas v'shalom, God forbid. No, it's not. Kedisa Sanhedrin, a story to illustrate this is brought in this Talmud tractate Sanhedrin. Damarle ahu mina l'Rabbi Gamliel, a heretic, a non-believer, came to Rabbi Gamliel. He said, he asked, on every group of 10, the divine presence is revealed? How many shchinas, how many divine presences do you have? He didn't ask how many groups of 10 you have. How many gods there are? How many divine presence are there? How could he be here and be over there? So he says, "V'heshiv le mashal ma'ara shamash hanichnas b'chalenis rabim." He gave a beautiful answer using a metaphor also. He says, imagine for a minute the sun. So the sun shines down on our city. Not today, it's cloudy outside. But on a beautiful city, and the sun is shining down, and there's 10,000 houses in a city. Well, some of the houses have their windows open, and some of the houses have their windows closed. The shades drawn. So if some of the houses raise their shades and others have it lower, does that change the sun? No. It's the same thing with the Shekhinah, with the divine presence and so on. It's there. It's shining. The question is, are the shades open or not? So it doesn't demonstrate a plurality in the divine presence. It's actually speaking to the level of receptivity, if that's a word, of the individual. So now, let me turn this question to you, and I'm going to ask myself too. Are my shades open? Are your shades open? Do you have the capacity right now to have the Shekhinah, the divine presence, enter into your life? And to try and connect it to current events right now, we're all very concerned about this coronavirus thing, and we're being told to separate from each other and maintain safe social distances and all this, very worthwhile and important stuff to hear, for sure. So people tend to feel at a time like this very isolated and lonely, and it's scary. All these things. In San Diego, or was it Los Angeles, or in all of California, all the bars are closed. Oh my goodness, where am I going to get my liquid courage? The bar is closed. I can't go in. So the question is one of attitude. If you choose to open your window, so to speak, if you choose to lift the shade and allow the Shekhinah to shine in, it will shine in. So there are many mitzvahs that we can do right now. We might be limited on some of the mitzvahs. The kids can't go to school, not right now. All the schools are closed as far as I know. Okay, studying is of course a big mitzvah. But there are plenty of mitzvah opportunities open to us right now. We just have to grasp them, embrace the opportunity. God is making us think outside of the box. We might be locked in the box, but we have to think outside of the box. So the thing to do right now is to, for example, make sure your elderly neighbors have their needs. You can do shopping runs for them, or you can pick up things from the pharmacy from them, or you could just call them and schmooze with them on the phone for a little while so that they know that they're not alone, that we're in this together. And that will go a long way to make them feel better. And that too is a mitzvah. So you see, the mitzvah opportunities are different than what we're used to, but there is definitely a positive side to that. Stretching ourselves, being able to go beyond ourselves, and so on. This is ultimately, we're going to find a ray of sunshine here. We're going to make this lemons, into lemonade. With that, I have to go now. We're going to do our davening now. It's time for us to pray. We're going to have the Chabad Virtual Academy. We're going to post later what schedules and classes we're going to offer, online classes, so that you can maintain your social distancing. But use your head. It's time to use your head more. Don't panic. Study Torah. Use this downtime to study more Torah and think of other types of mitzvahs that you can do. There is no end to the possibilities. And may the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rest upon you openly in a revealed way. And may Mashiach come b'mhera v'yameinu speedily in our day. I'll talk to you later. Have a great day. God bless.